half mortal, half god, all heroes of Olympus. You're listening to Ranking Rick Riordan, a podcast where we rank every book in the Percy Jackson Mythological Universe, aka the Riordanverse. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga.
And I'm Clara, and today we're discussing the Heroes of Olympus, Book 5, The Blood of Olympus.
This episode is brought to you by Medea's Department Store. Newly renovated and better than ever. This weekend only, magical shoes are half off. Act now before they go flying off the shelves. Now let's get into the show. Let's move on to the shadow quest between Reyna, Cokehead, and Nico.
Yeah.
So the first, I didn't write down every single thing. Like, I didn't write down about Pompeii and stuff like that, because those are okay.
Yeah, stuff happened.
Yeah. The first thing that really is major is Orion's first appearance, where he just is a Terminator and just destroys everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he killing Kinsey and Phoebe and all those other people. That was again oh my god, this is an adult ass book.
I think so. Okay, so I texted at some point this should be a spin-off TV show. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like that's true. It feels like Angel to the rest of the rest of the books, Buffy, where it's like you actually can't have these things at the same time because these are different. This is different in tone. Take this whole section, move it out, and they interact with each other sometimes, but the themes, all the stuff with Orion, that's really scary. Yeah. It really, actually, the more I say it, feels sort of like Angel-esque, or it's just this is really dark and scary, potentially triggering the stuff with Orion and Reyna. It's really intense.
Yeah.
And then the stuff with Nico as well is just
dark.
I love this. I love this. But the more I think about it, the more I'm I loved this book that was about Reyna and Nico. But it's different. It's not the same.
Yeah, and the other thing, so Orion, I think they do a pretty good job of towing the line as far as it's pretty clear that attempted sexual assault occurred, but not in a way that's overly in the face. If you're a kid, you probably wouldn't quite get that.
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, it was a very interesting, very deliberate choice, because if you look at I looked at an okay amount of Orion myth stuff. Riordan kind of made this happen. This isn't super drenched in the myths. The level of certainly aggression from Orion and making him this misogynist in its purest form.
Yeah.
Very interesting villain, and I think they handle him very well.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
I'm okay with him going harder on myths, in filling them in to suit his own needs, because if you're interested in Orion, there's stuff out there to read about, and that will be more genuine. But having him face off and be such a threat, with that, again, depending on the baggage that you bring to reading the books yourself, it could be a bit much. It was, for me, a little bit hard to read sometimes as well, because of such of the our cultural
milieu.
Yeah, just our the way that misogyny has now developed into the whole incel subculture, and how much of attention that is traction that is getting right now. I'm not saying that that's what he is, because that wasn't really dominant. That's not what Rick was writing. But the thing is that this could be a bit much for some people, but it could also just be it's still appropriate for younger readers.
Yeah.
It is towing that line very skillfully in a very interesting way. It is very much an example of the patriarchy, with what Reyna is dealing with everything that her father and his trauma and his mental illness brought to the table, and how that affected her. And yet she's a daughter of Bologna, so her being like the daughter of a warrior goddess and like that empowering her. So it's like also very feminine. Like this is also very feminist without beating you over the head with it of like, girl power. Like it is so skillful. Like you have the Athena Parthenos then like empowering her. You have Bellona empowering her. And then that is her cloak, like helping her, which is a symbol of a shield, which is a thing that like so many female characters are not like reduced to, but like, oh, their weapon is the shield. Their weapon is like the telepathy that like in so much
distanced fighting.
Right. Yeah. And she uses that to slaughter, like to choke him to death. Like, like it's just a really interesting way of that, how that ties together. And that's why for me, like Reyna is the best character in this book. Yeah,
it's her book.
Yeah.
And also, even when you think about just the shield part of it, like it's not usually I'm jumping on a grenade to take the blast just for myself either.
Right.
Like, you know, like
yeah.
You know, the one thing that I struggle with a little bit in this, and maybe you guys can answer this question for me, is what is Reyna's arc?
Yeah. No, I agree. This is why I really feel like what this book does, and I love it because I really enjoy it, but it's setting up something different. Like it's with Jason too. With Jason, it just feels weird because it's off because it should have been before. But with Reyna and Nico, Nico has a bit more of an arc, but like this is just a sort of Reyna coming into her own as a character without like a sort of arc per se. And with Nico, like I just want them to have their own stuff that's way more adult. Like I don't even that's not particularly eloquent, but like I don't think she has an arc.
She has
this
some
feels like just
stuff.
So I mean, we knew she had like a traumatic past, like that's the reason that she and Hill ran away, and like we knew something went down with her past and why she like felt it was important to be who she is and be powerful at Camp Jupiter and be this protector and all of that. So that was like us going into that. And then I guess the thing is that Reyna has always been very like confident in how we've known her.
Yeah.
So we haven't like known her to like run away from a fight. So the fact that she's like, we know she's not running from a fight by abandoning by abandoning Camp Jupiter because she's joining our heroes for like more of a fight, but technically she was running from a fight. So like it is about her coming to terms with her own like
did I do the right thing?
Yeah. And I don't think it's a traditional arc or like the most, you know, beginning, middle, and end arc that other characters have experienced, but she doesn't like need that because she still has development. It might not be an arc, but it's still like movement forward.
I would argue that her most significant change, I don't know if you want to call it an arc, but I think this book is about her allowing herself to be vulnerable and ask for help. I think her talking to Nico about what happened, and then I also think her talking to Piper at the very end about what Venus said to her. That is very much her allowing herself to think about herself and not just think about everyone else.
I totally agree, and that's actually what I was thinking was that I think the thing that you can sort of take away besides all the other incredible parts of it, but between Reyna and Nico is Reyna and Nico both need to learn how to rely on other people, and by the end they do. And it puts them in a different place. Again, it's not so much like they went through a whole arc. It's setting them up for, and now that you know you need to rely on other people, like, I wonder what'll happen next. Like,
to me, it's not even just relying on other people. It's just even letting other people in and trusting that not everyone is going to hurt you. And that there are people there who are genuinely there to help you and want to help you. So it's not even like, I need other people. It's like, having other people's help and looking to them is not a sign of weakness. It's not going to be traumatizing me further.
In many ways, I think Reyna and Nico is also about Nico being able to open up on his own terms, whereas the last book was not on his own terms. And so I I think that's really good. Like continuing on that same theme of like, this doesn't need to be traumatic. There are people you can have in your life who you can trust enough so that it's not a trauma to tell them. And so like in some ways I kind of, again, like, I guess I wish the stuff with Jason in the last book was just different.
Yeah.
They're like,
we have feedback about that. We can talk about it in a little bit more detail,
great.
But I will say, I do think that Nico has a pretty significant arc in this, and I do think that it's also the culmination of his arc starting in Titan's Curse.
Yeah, that's fair.
Clearly there's more to mine there, but I think more so than Reyna, it does feel like a ending-ish, whereas Reyna does feel like a new beginning.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Nico in more detail. Let's talk about Bryce Lawrence and him totally just destroying this person who is like a friggin' serial killer.
Yeah, who's literally like, I like killing animals, and I killed my own like
Centurion.
Thank you, and I will kill you too. Like, yeah, he's a proto serial killer.
Yeah.
Like he is
King of Pain.
Yeah. What is this tonal shift that happens in these chapters? It's wild.
Yeah. I remember just how I had to like turn off the audiobook the first time I read that thing, because he doesn't just murder a person. He takes away like their essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wipes them of anything that makes them them, and they die and are sent to
eternal
nothingness, really, in the fields of Asphodel. Like, it's not even that it's like, you don't get to be punished as yourself. You get to spend the rest of eternity as a nothing and no one. Like,
yeah, I love Nico more than words can describe.
I think I made a noise like ho ho or something like that, and Dan was like, I know where you're at right now. Just like, what the? Oh, Jesus! Like, I don't make noises like that while I'm reading. Yeah. Like, I don't really laugh out loud. I just kind of like smile to myself. But this was, I think, the only time over these whole books where I wasn't specifically stopping to talk to you about something. I was just like, couldn't keep it all inside of me.
Oh my God. Frigging amazing, dark, awesome moments. And then, the way Reyna and Hedge handle it too, I think is great. Yeah. Hedge is great throughout the book in general. I'll just jump ahead and talk about Chuck and how much I friggin' love Chuck.
Baby Chuck Norris.
Yeah. And Clarice being the godmother. Mm-hmm. Great stuff there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nico, so let's talk about Will. Clara, I'm interested in seeing your perspective on Will.
Okay, so this is the thing that I had accidentally gotten spoiled on.
Mm-hmm. That's what Olga got spoiled on too.
Yeah.
I knew it. I thought so, and we couldn't check that. Okay, I thought that wouldn't happen until the next series because it happened, and then they started interacting, and I was like, okay, starting to get a little. All right, we're just hinting at it, and then it like continued, and I was like, oh, all right, well, good for you, Nico.
Yeah. Right.
Because like Nico, you're allowed to have crushes on other people. Yeah. That's one thing that I at first I was thinking like this feels rushed and weird because it's so rushed and like we don't really know Will as a person and now we do, and also he's a love interest of my most beloved character, so that's a lot for me.
At once, yeah.
But then I was thinking how actually lovely it is that Nico doesn't go from being in love with Percy to being in love with Will. Yeah. And so the fact that it is a sort of just like, oh, now I have a crush on Will is like, good. Good. And like, we'll see what happens with it. But it doesn't need to be like, now it's the whole arc of the, it's nice.
I am of two minds, I guess. I generally like them together. I think that the characterization of Will I do like, and I think that giving him someone who doesn't take his
broody nonsense,
his nonsense, that's a good way of putting it for our young audiences, is a really smart move. And I think that him having someone who sort of combats him, I think it was great. I do personally, I do feel like it was pretty rushed, which just kind of bums me out.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, and it's because, like, again, like, this is that last quarter, right? And it's like, it's good stuff happening, but it should have been its own full book. And if it had been a whole book, we would have loved like everything about this last quarter.
I really wish we had a full book of him and Will developing together throughout a book, instead of throughout a third of a book.
So this is the thing. They are like a nicer version of actually the beginning of the Leo and Calypso trope, where it's like, we don't like each other, we don't get because they're combative. I mean, yes, Leo and Calypso are like, I hate you too, and then they fall in love. But the thing with Will and Nico is, it's like, they barely know each other, but in the background of Will's mind, he's like, I want to know Nico better. And Nico's like, why is this kid bossing me around? Who does he think he is? Like, and it's still this thing of them kind of grumbling and, you know, respecting each other and listening to each other at the end of the day. But at the same time, it is growing from this, like, somewhat antagonistic, like, I'm fed up with you perspective. And that's a fun trope. Like, I like that kind of storytelling.
And I personally read it as Will comes in having a bit of a crush on him.
Yes. So and this is a thing where it feels a little bit rushed to me, and why that it is different from, you know, Leo Calypso or their version of that is Will already being like, I wanted to get to know you better. I did still see you as that hero who saved us in
Last Olympian.
Thank you. My favorite book. And I forget its title. The point is, though, that, like, we didn't know that. We didn't really see them interact. I do believe Nico when he's like, nobody wanted me around. I believe him to a degree. About the nobody wanted me around at Camp Half-Blood. I did scare people. People liking me for being that hero wore off quickly, and I just went to being that creepy son of Hades again, so I left. Yeah,
because I didn't hear, but when Nico would say that stuff, I didn't go, oh, Nico, you're overreacting, because we've read so many people be freaked out by him.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, I was just taken aback a little bit about how forceful and like in your face Will was, even though overall I like that idea. But when it's a character I just met, I'm a little like, whoa, oh, okay.
You're bossing Nico around? My Nico?
Like, if I had been reading these, you know, as each book came out, I probably would have forgotten about Will by the time this book came out. Like, it's only because we do the podcast and had read them very quickly together that I'm like, of course, it's Will. He's in my favorite book. Like,
So for me, one of the reasons why I like this sort of like trope pairing of them is their godly parents are actually like fairly opposed to each other in a way that it makes sense for the kids to not necessarily know where they're coming from or appreciate each other. Because Apollo is the god of healing and Hades death. Like, this is a very interesting dynamic that Nico's already like overthinking in a lot of ways, and Will is already sort of like, I'm past that. But like Nico doesn't see that. So like that's a very good, that sort of like trope of, you know, like, but they could never be. In a way that like I constantly think about this with Percy and Annabeth, where it's like, oh, they don't get along because Poseidon and Athena. And it's like, I think their kids can be over the founding of Athens. Like, I don't think there's anything at stake.
Love the moment where he makes out with Annabeth being like, we're ending this once and for all at Athens. And Piper's like, really okay, guy.
I mean, I know I'm the daughter of Aphrodite, but like, I would be in this corner and you let me know when you're done.
Good stuff.
Percy, keep it in your 17-year-old pants.
Okay, so my next section is just the ending, talking first about the Athena Parthenos, which I have to say, to me, is another thing that just generally in the books is not my favorite. I really love the, you know, initial quest with Annabeth to get it, but to me, it like magically healing the like issue between the two camps is just a little too meh. Like, especially because they were already close to getting things fixed by discussion, which is what's more interesting. And I know we needed something to make it so that it was Reyna that did this and that her quest mattered. So I don't really know. I don't have like a fix for this. But
I was sitting here this whole time ever since they had the quest, and they're like, this is going to bring them together as long as the Roman brings the Athena Parthenos back. I was like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
Like I never expected this to really make any darn sense. Like
because the Romans were the ones that were wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. I kind of was sitting here waiting for a hand wavy, like, and then they worked together. At least the fact that they had diplomats already there saying, like, not all of us are on board. Like, at least that, I genuinely thought he was only going to have it be like, and a wave of peaceful magic. Yeah. Like, at least it wasn't just that, because I never expected this to work for me as an adult reader.
Yeah.
It's far too hand wavy for my liking.
Yeah, especially if they had made it so the Greeks were the aggressors, like driven mad by Athena's rage or something, then maybe the Athena Parthenos would have made more sense. But the Romans are the ones who are angry, so it feels a little off.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Octavian and his overall demise. I personally really enjoy Octavian in this book. He's one of my favorite villains in general. I think they really did a good job of straddling the line between him going too far, but also like never quite going insane and cartoony over the top for me. And also, I'm just so glad they never like officially were like, and Gia was controlling his mind the whole time.
Yeah.
And then him ultimately saving Rome.
He got his wish.
Yeah.
He didn't go full Nero.
Yeah. Well, and also how he ties to Apollo.
Yeah.
And I mean, like how Apollo is sort of fallible as well, based on the power hungry whims of this human, and how he ties into Nico's arc, where it is a question of like how much of a villain is Octavian, because like Bryce, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Octavian, it's a sort of like where's the line here?
Yeah, I think that works well.
So
the only part of this that
really
I don't like is, again, just kind of a pacing thing, which is the scene in which Octavian actually dies, I think is stretched out too long.
Yeah.
And I honestly, if I were writing this or editing this, I would have scrapped the entire character of his like buddy who turns on him.
Oh yeah.
Like that moment should have been 100% about Octavian and Nico and a little bit Will. We didn't need this other guy coming in there and turning on him. And maybe the idea was to be like really show that Rome was turning its back on Octavian. But I just feel like we knew what was going to happen with Octavian for like 10 pages before it happened with Octavian. So like that.
How many times are they like, and all of the imperial gold he was wearing was magnetized. So look, it's like floating, drawing him in. I'm like, okay, can you not telegraph this anymore? Like, is that not, it's not possible to telegraph this any further than you already are. It's
that said, still an awesome end for him.
It was still really good. And frankly, I did like Michael Kahale because he is an example of someone who like supported Octavian. Like, so you have Dakota and not Chloe, or was it
something like that?
Yeah, the other. I feel so bad.
Clarice.
The other like centurion who were like, Octavian didn't trust them, which is why he sent Michael with him. So you have that reign. Like, it makes sense because at the end, it actually shows how not even the Romans that supported Octavian like end up realizing this is a bad choice.
I just kind of wish maybe if they had made Michael Kahale show up earlier when like the two camps were actually facing off, and he came in as one of the peacekeepers as opposed to dragging out this death scene.
To me, the real answer is he should have been in one of the Rome books. Like, I think
Rome
we need
books?
Like one of the books at Camp Jupiter. Excuse me. Like the fact is that I wish I had known more centurions, more people in the Legion that weren't like that could have come up again instead of introducing them in the last book and just flesh out the world. Like, we had so many random one-off, like, Greek campers that we knew about, again, like Will. Yeah. But, so, I mean, I guess Will was also brought up in the last book. The point is that, like, I wish we'd known him at least a little bit earlier and known him to be a crony, so to speak, a crony of Octavian before.
Yeah.
I do wonder, this could have been Rick playing into Roman history a little bit, as is his want, and something that I also want. So like there is a sort of pattern in Roman history, I think maybe most notably with Caligula, where the guard of the emperor is sort of like responsible for the emperor's death. because he eventually is just driven so mad with power. The person, basically like his right-hand man or his guard, like has to be the one to kill him. So do I like that? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it helpful for the story? Maybe.
Yeah. God, you're going to love Trials of Apollo.
I know.
Yeah, so moving on, let's talk about, I mean, we've barely hit on Leo so far in this book. The thing about Leo is I freaking love it, like, on paper. I think that the problem is that they really, really telegraph what's going to happen. They really, really, like, want you to know things are going to be okay. I almost wish, I was saying to Olga, that Leo didn't have point of view chapters until the last one.
That would have been so cool.
And I mean, because what he does is freaking awesome. You know, Leo's just such a badass, and you know, it all being for the love of Calypso and everything. And he does get those moments with Percy early on, which I do like. It just comes back to the fact that, to me, this book does not live up to the darkness of itself and of Son of Neptune, which sets up such a, like, the amount of times we hear about this battle before it happens throughout all the other books, and how much sacrifice is going to be needed, and how much duty and blah, blah, blah. And then that it comes out to, okay, one person dies and we know they're not actually dead right away because we're not dumb. And they literally got the physician's cure. Like, so like, you set up in Son of Neptune that, like, Frank has this stick, Hazel wasn't supposed to be alive, and both of them are totally fine, and
not POV people in the
last book. I wanted a little bit more
blood,
actual sacrifice, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm asking for too much. It is a kid's series, but you end up with this weird thing where you have, like, literally, like, sexual assault and PTSD and all this other stuff happening. But
well, they pull back on the PTSD a bit too. Like, it's so background. Like,
well, I'm talking with PTSD with Dad.
Oh, okay.
With Raina's dad.
Raina's dad. Yeah, that's fair. That was
there's so much PTSD that we don't even know which PTSD we're talking about. Which one are they
pulling back on? Yeah.
For me, it's one of these things where, again, it just feels like, so there's the Leo stuff is a kid's book, and the Raina and Nico stuff is an adult, like, or, you know, like something different in tone. Yeah. And then there's stuff that's sort of in the middle. But Leo's stuff is always, it feels like, for the more, like, middle school age audience. Like, his humor, just sort of like him as this, like, goofy guy.
And he's just kind of like a fun badass too, right? I mean, I really do, like, I don't want to underplay, like, I really do enjoy Leo in this book, and it's awesome that he's the ultimate hero and he gets revenge for his mom and all that stuff. And that he really thinks it through and talks it over with Apollo and Nike and all that stuff. And I didn't expect to see Festus act as Festus.
I know, that was so great. I have to say, at first, the idea of Leo not having POV chapters so that this is, like, a real surprise, and then we have him rescuing Calypso and then flying off together happily ever after. Like, on paper, for me, that seems good, except I do enjoy so many of these Leo chapters, and I've, like, come back around on him so much that I would have felt deprived of his perspective too. True. So, like,
where they could have given you Percy instead.
Or Frank.
Well,
it made me afraid for Frank, because when they took away his perspective, I was like, cool, Frank is making it through this book.
So let's talk about also the whole, did they pay off the whole idea of Frank is going to have to make a decision that Percy couldn't make and all that. And, like, they did, I guess. And just in a very, like literally, it's like 3 sentences between, like, Frank and Percy, or Percy's like, we should go up there and help them. And Frank's like, no, this is like the quest with Annabeth. So you've already done this. So, like,
wow, I hadn't even thought about that as being the payoff, and I was about to say, no, they didn't do anything, and the fact that is what they did.
Yeah, what they did is they didn't really give Percy the chance. They basically, Leo knew that Percy wouldn't be able to do it, so he went to Frank, and that says something about Frank and Hazel, which I do like.
Right.
But Percy facing his fatal flaw should be him doing something, or at least us in his head while he's thinking. I wanted him to almost screw it up, honestly.
Yes.
I mean, they literally had him, Gia saved him for instead of Phineas.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like, how many times did Gia say, you're going to be, and I know that, like, his blood was part of it, but, like.
So could have been Jason's or Frank's. He literally, she really just needed. Or Leo's, right. She just needed a dude.
Yeah. Like, and I know that Percy was her, like, favored, but, like, it was very clear that he and his flaw and his mistakes and who he was going to screw things up. And I wanted him to do that. I wanted him to screw up and someone else have to fix it, or him have to realize he screwed up and have to fix it.
So I have a weird complaint here. Yeah. Simultaneously, I'm like, man, this book really, like, craps on Percy.
Yeah.
But it also kind of ignores Percy. Yeah. And I'm like, so how it's not doing enough of crapping on him or anything else. Because his blood, his like slight drop of blood is the reason that Gia wakes up. Just that tiny little droplet. And we're not in his head to have him dealing with that, like, at all.
I do want to just say I did enjoy the little humor around that, where Athena or someone's like, it's not wise to assign blame or whatever, and then Frank mentions the nosebleed again. He's like, hey, Athena said.
I did like the slight humor that was happening there. I also like the humor of Poseidon when like Kimapalia came up and Zeus is like, Kima what? And Poseidon's like, yeah, she's one of mine. Let's not talk about that right now. Like, you know, the smart Alec Poseidon family is great. Yeah. I do love that. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right that like Percy's fatal flaw, not that important. Percy doesn't mess up enough or come back enough from it.
Yeah.
This grates, especially because we'd already just been talking about this with House of Hades, where like there could have been something where Percy makes a mistake because of his fatal flaw. And we don't get that, and it feels like such a letdown emotionally. With Bob and House of Hades, and now with like they could have had like Annabeth needs to knock him out and drag him into the elevator, or this could have been Frank needs to knock him out so that he doesn't go.
But think about how good it would be if he couldn't do the Bob thing, Annabeth had to knock him out, and then this whole book was about them having a little bit of tension around that, and him understanding but being upset. And then his climax was him being faced with the same choice again. And this time he goes, Annabeth was right.
Yeah.
That is such a story.
Good
like,
that would be another arc for Percy.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if, in this case, it wasn't Frank having to, I mean, Frank could still, like, convince him, so to speak. But Percy, like, having that fight with himself and just, like, standing back. So not almost messing it up, but being like, oh, God, I can't, but I have to. Like, that would have been so mature. And not too much, because we've already had something along, you know, I mean, Rick has done maturity, like we've talked about, and mature choices and difficult choices. So, like, this would have worked.
Yeah. I just think that's such a missed opportunity. But moving forward, let's talk about Nico telling Percy about the crush and all that. And also, because, I mean, this is also when Percy and Annabeth sort of make their future plans, giving us a nice little bow there.
It was cute. Yeah.
It was good. This is the part that something felt like off pacing wise. Maybe if they're, because it's sort of just like, and then Nico sees Percy and is like, he still has those eyes, but like now he's a person, not a mythical figure. Where like, I think if we had just had like, and then it's just like, used to have a crush on you, don't anymore, bye. Like, cool Nico. Nico is great. But also, I wish there had been like one chapter, like maybe if he had talked to Raina about like, I think I'm going to tell them this thing, and I'm sort of like worried about, I don't know. It seems a little too like self-contained old Nico of like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's supposed to be motivated by him realizing like actual feelings for Will, as opposed to the like like godly like looking up to Percy when he was younger and everything. But I guess it all feels a little bit fast.
To me it wasn't like, I guess it's fun. I didn't get too much out of him admitting his old crush to Percy. I think it would have been more interesting if he actually talked about like, you know, I used to look up, like if he actually went in on like, I saw you as such a hero, and now you're a person to me, and I respect that. But like if anything, reinforcing Percy's like fatal flaw from
good point.
Nico's perspective, not in a like romance.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're being a little bit harsh on this because it really, I mean, it is the culmination of him accepting who he is.
That's true.
And I think I'm sure this means a lot to a lot of people, so I don't want to be that negative.
I know.
But, yeah.
I just want to say again about Nico, in case anyone doesn't know, that every scene that Nico is in, I love this boy, and I like, I don't even know what to say. Even here, the problem is that he's in some ways sometimes too cool for school.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is still who he is, right? So even if that's a problem that we have where we're like, if only he'd been a little bit more vulnerable, like, you know what? At the end of the day, he's still Nico, and he's still too cool for school sometimes. So.
Oh no, Will is making me stay in the med tent for 3 days. I'm not allowed to use any of my spooky powers.
What will I do?
Oh no, I'm gonna grumble about this definitely, but okay, I'm coming.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I also liked him high-fiving Annabeth.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Oh my god.
Yeah, good stuff. And let's also, so the last two things I want to end out on are Raina talking with Piper, which we hit on a little bit, but any thoughts or theories or whatever about where this is going? I can't talk about it because I got spoil them.
I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to be right or wrong. Yeah.
So, I understand not wanting to make theories about the Raina stuff. I'm very annoyed that I've got spoiled on a few things coming up. But moving on from that, the last thing is just that the Piper, Jason recreating their quote-unquote first kiss. Just a very cute, sweet moment. And now I actually, care more about Jason, so I get more out of it.
Yep.
Okay, those were our thoughts. Let's get into some feedback. If you want to share your feedback with us, you can email us at ourpodcastfeedback@gmail.com or comment down below on YouTube. Please rate or review us on all the podcast services, all of them. That's our demand from us to you. A big thank you to Pan Pandora on Apple Pods and Janine Irwin on Audible.
Woo!
The Salty Bros writes in, so what's the deal with the timeline of all these books and series?
Yeah, so I was looking into this, and if you want like a detailed explanation, you can go to the wiki for Rick Riordan. I'll put a link down below in the YouTube video. And there's like a timeline specific page to the wiki. If you're just talking about the core books, because there's also all the short stories and stuff, but the core books, Kane Chronicles is basically concurrent with Heroes of Olympus. And then there's the crossover short stories between Kane Chronicles and Heroes of Olympus. And there's like 3 short stories that then got collected into one book, which I do think will probably do that. Because it seems like a pretty big deal combining the characters.
Yeah.
And then we go into Trials of Apollo, which is concurrent with Magnus Chase. So I wasn't sure exactly what to do about that because I looked into it a little bit. It doesn't seem like it seems like we can do Trials of Apollo all at once and then do Magnus Chase all at once and it won't be a problem. But there is a little bit of a crossover.
Yeah. So actually on that note, Minu wrote in, could you please tell the order you're going to do the podcast so I can buy the right books to follow along? Yeah.
So, the basic thing here is for the next few is definitely going to be Kane Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. Then, we'll probably do a one-parter on Demigods and Magicians is the name of the short story combining the two.
Cool.
And then I'm thinking we do a short, quick aside where we do Paula Santiago, which is one of the Rick Riordan Presents books, because the second one is coming out in August. So I figure we do the first one, which I've actually read and I liked a lot, and then we do the second one when it comes out, and then we go to Trials of Apollo. Again, this is possibly going to change. I don't know, but I'll let you know.
Yeah. So at least plan on, if you're going to be reading along with us, plan on Kane Chronicles.
Yeah, that's definite. Yeah. Kane Chronicles and Demigods and Magicians are the most definite part of all this. Also, there's the new short story collection that Riordan is putting out, and he's putting out so many friggin' books. This year, there's 2 more books that have writings from Riordan himself coming out. So we'll give you some advanced warning on those. I don't remember the exact dates, but I believe they're both like September, October. So we probably will have little pauses for those.
All right.
All right.
We don't have access to those, so don't worry about them quite yet.
Yeah.
All right. So continuing into more feedback. Felicia writes in, I stumbled upon your podcast a week ago and I got hooked right away. I'm 27 and I've been reading Percy Jackson since I was in my early teens. When I was about 13, so like 2006, I borrowed The Lightning Thief from the school library for the Dear, Drop Everything and Read hour at my new school, and I kind of sort of pretended to read the first few chapters. I hated reading in 8th grade, but I always loved mythology, and my oldest sister, Deirdre, used to read us myths out of this huge old Greek and Roman mythology book she had. So, for some reason, I never returned the book, and I just kept it even when I moved to a different group home on the other side of the state. I was also in group home / foster care / state care from 12 to 18. When it was announced a movie was coming out, I was like, don't I have that book? So I decided to actually read it. And it wasn't long after that, I was saving up my allowance for the rest of the series. I have ADHD and have been diagnosed with slight dyslexia, whatever that means. I've always related to the series also being in so many ways in group homes and state care, always going to new schools and getting in trouble. I was a lot like Percy in that way. I've always been borderline obsessed with the series. So a paragraph later, what I'm getting at is I really love the podcast and the series. Thank you for listening to me rant about how Percy Jackson helped me get through the toughest time in my childhood.
I love this email.
Yeah.
It's just so nice. I hope Rick knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick better listen to our this specific part of our podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really shows that from the very beginning, he was doing representation, just not in the way that you always, most obviously talk about. But I think it's really cool.
He was creating something that he knew kids could relate to.
Yeah.
Kids and, young adults, let's just put it this way. And the effort he put into that, clearly didn't go unnoticed.
Yep.
So that's...
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Lou Robb says, House of Hades is my favorite book, and the single scene that managed to pull a tear from me is the very last scene when Percy looks at the night sky and the stars and he says, Bob says hello. Especially when you remember that Zoe Nightshade, his granddaughter, was killed and made into a constellation.
I totally missed that she's his granddaughter, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird to think about, but very cool.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's not like it really is something that you have to have a good memory about and really pay attention to the mythology. I mean, everyone in this book is related in some way.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think you have to be a mythology person because I don't think they ever mentioned that he's Atlas's father. Like, I know that she's Atlas's daughter, but I don't know if they ever said Iapetus is like in the books themselves. So
maybe they might have in the short story.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
True. It's possible.
But there was so much going on in that short story that like a throwaway line of I was the father of Atlas is not like...
Well, I totally forgot that in the short story, and Clara, you didn't even read this, that the god of ghosts is in that, and Thalia is like afraid of meeting her mom.
Oh, I need to read these.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear.
That's okay. The one swear, it's not a big one.
You have to bleep it out.
Yeah. They mentioned. I think we see the ghost of the mom. Pretty sure, or at least she's like afraid because she's in the underworld. She's afraid her mom's gonna show up or something like that.
I'm telling you that the use of the mom was underutilized, given that it was relegated sort of to a short story. The fact that was a short story in general is like a big nitpick I have.
I mean, it's a weird thing because I want the short stories to matter, but I also, if they matter, then why are they a short story?
Yeah. Or they really should be published in every version of the book where you need to read them.
That's true, because it is, I know in at least the original publication, House of Hades has that short story in the back of it.
Yeah,
but
my copy did.
It's not part of the audiobook. It's not part of some of the re-releases and stuff. So
the fact that the actual published book had a bunch of like word searches and crosswords and whatever. I mean, I don't know if that was just the copy that you got that was a movie tie-in, but like the fact that this was too short to really be a book of short stories because it only had 3.
Yeah.
But it also had the
Beckendorf one?
No, the one. Well, yes, it had that too, but it had Clarice's, half siblings, Piper's half siblings that are the gods that were the chain god.
But it's not like the chain. I mean, honestly, it's almost better if you don't read that one because the chain gods stink in that short story, and they're cool in the Heroes of Olympus.
That is true. They're kind of bratty.
Moving on.
Okay. Lindsay says, "Hi guys, I was wondering if you could go into greater depth about Nico's forced coming out scene. I know you guys talked about it already, but I think there's something so significant about Nico's interaction with Cupid, both within the world of the characters and on a meta level. I think that Nico's coming out scene is one of the most memorable, impactful scenes in any of the Rick Riordan books. I remember reading The House of Hades when I was in high school, and this scene stuck with me more than any other. It struck me because of how deeply I felt for Nico, how heartbreaking his experience has been, especially because we as readers had never considered that aspect of his trauma before. Because of that, I think the reveal is incredibly effective and compelling within the context of the story. However, on the meta level, Nico's scene can be really triggering and can also read as exploiting the coming out process / queer experiences to make for a more angsty, juicy story. Considering these two aspects, I was wondering, what is the responsibility of an author like Rick Riordan, who's trying to both do right by queer young adults, while also trying to make a good story in general? Can these two interpretations of the same scene be reconciled?"
All right, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but Clara, do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, this is so eloquently put, all of this. And I mean, I think it's really worth thinking about the difference between how things work on a story level versus how they work when you think about them interacting with different audiences.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really can't put it any better than thinking about that sort of dichotomy between good story and doing right, and how hard it is to reconcile that.
Yeah, I mean, so just to give some language to it, I guess, is something that I learned a lot about in screenwriting is the idea of the aesthetic versus the ethical.
Yep.
And that basically any choice you make as a writer, or creator, or whatever, in a story is going to have some aesthetic value and some ethical value, and that sometimes they're not going to be on the same wavelength. So sometimes you'll have something like this that is aesthetically positive and ethically arguably negative. And it's not necessarily quite that polar opposite-y, but obviously the goal is to have things that are ethically good and aesthetically good. But when you have things be off whack, because you can also have things that are ethically positive but aesthetically negative. Say you have something where you're like, oh, I'm going to write a gay couple and nothing bad can ever happen to them. They're never going to have any conflict. And now it's just like a really boring ass story because nothing's happening. But so when you have those things out of whack, you basically have to decide both as a creator and as an audience, was it worth it? Because sometimes you look and you go, okay, I know this technically is sending slightly a bad message or whatever, but you know what, for the story, to me as a writer, it's worth it. And then each member of the audience has to say, was it?
Yeah.
And I think it's different for everybody.
Getting back to Nico, like, there are people who are going to find this relatable and therapeutic in that way. And then there are going to be people who find it triggering and not want to, engage with it. And the problem with reconciling these two sides is, as you put it, everyone has to find their own line.
And I'll just say for myself, I do reconcile it. And I to me, it comes out more positive than negative, but I understand that that's a me thing. Everybody's going to feel differently about it. And it's a hard thing to reconcile.
I recognize the value of this scene. I recognize why, especially like you, Dan, and you, Clara, like why you really enjoyed it. But for me, I'm like, our big Cupid fight, for example, like I still don't agree with, like, all this time later. And I'm just like, what the hell is he doing on this list? We'll get to that in our ranking soon. But yeah, it's exactly that, where I'm just like, this didn't work for me in part, I think, because of the like ethics of it.
Yep.
I have a harder time reconciling it and enjoying it. But if I had read this when I was younger, maybe it would be completely different.
Yeah.
I will say, just like without relitigating everything, I think one reason why I would say this is in more of a gray area for me on that sort of like scale.
Yep.
Wow, that's mixing a lot of metaphors. Whatever, bear with me. Is because we could think of, as a group, we could think of so many different ways that I think the story could have been told with similar like pathos.
Yeah.
Without needing to
go that route.
To do this. Yeah. And so I think that is a problem. But is this like the most egregious thing? I don't know that that's true either. I think this really is it's precisely that gray area where individuals will feel different ways based on who they are and what they're bringing to the reading.
I mean, especially because I wouldn't say it's purely ethically bad, because it's still introducing a queer character that's very likable and then goes on to have a more ongoing storyline.
Right.
So like it's messy.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that even though the coming out is forced, that Jason does provide a strong support system for him in the next 2 books.
Right.
So,
yeah. It is not that Jason is adding to his trauma. Well, like, at least in his mind, is not adding to his trauma. To Nico, he's like, you exist and are near me, so you are adding to my trauma. But you could say that, like, Nico in general, not coming to terms with his, like, sexuality immediately, or like having to explore that, and his resentment for his crush for Percy and all that, like the fact that is even like his continued storyline in Blood of Olympus, that could also be adding to the like just the fact that he is an unhappy gay character for a lot of people is just like, I've read this trope already, I don't want it. And it's like, well
that's a perfect example of the aesthetic versus the ethical, where it's like, yeah, if you're being like perfectly ethical, you wouldn't have them be a traumatized character at all necessarily.
Right.
But it tells a great story, and it also tells a story that's relatable, so like.
Yeah. And it makes sense for Nico, for his backstory. Like, he's not a happy character. Yeah. And we're pretty confident that he wasn't written in his introduction with the plans of at some point being gay.
Yeah.
So when we first met this like little kid, was Rick already like, and he's gonna have a crush on Percy someday? And like, we don't know that, but I personally don't really think that. But who's to say what the plans were? So if this book was being written right now and all of this could be like plotted out, who knows how things would be different? But we are also in a different world a bit. I think we have progressed a good amount even since this book came out in terms of pop culture and queer representation.
Yeah. I want to take this to a slightly side thing that I don't think we've talked about really yet, which is this is also, I do think, kind of subtextually important for Jason's journey too, because I think you're supposed to take this as Jason seeing how much Nico was struggling with his identity and figuring out who he is and how painful it is not to be himself. That I think that's supposed to be a underlying element motivating Jason going forward.
I totally buy that. And it reinforces every frustration I have with how Jason is handled, where you get to Blood of Olympus and you're like, wow, Jason, what a guy. What an interesting journey we've had together, Jason. But then, like, you read anything that Jason is in prior to Blood of Olympus, you're just like, what is this boy doing? Who is he? Why is he here? Like, it's so frustrating.
That's why Dan, I think, enjoyed Jason so much more on this reread, because he's finding the subtext that you and I missed, Clara, because we didn't. The reveal, so to speak, for him was so late in the game that everything else seems disjointed without it. So I think I would with the reread, I would go into it with the same eyes as you, Dan, and be looking for this. So this begs the question of how much subtext is too much subtext, because I would never, other than connecting, the only line I could really connect between Jason and Nico was Jason is trying to help him come out of his shell and support him, and that's it. But your reading of it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I totally understand where you guys are coming from. And I do think, even as someone rereading, I am still frustrated. I see more than I did, but I also am like, but you still could have done more.
Yeah.
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 Because you don't get any of these things of like, oh, he's struggling too. You're just sort of told that he's struggling.
Yep.
Which is unhelpful because you don't really see him, like, you don't feel him suffering or struggling.
Yep.
You just are told that he is. And meanwhile, he's just like, nope, guess I'll do this.
Which is in super stark contrast to Nico, who we're very viscerally feeling how he feels as opposed to being told.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even when it's not his perspective.
Yeah.
Like, it's Jason's POV, and you're like, well, I know how Nico's feeling. What's Jason doing?
All right. Well, that's it for this piece of feedback. We don't have a direct answer for you, but go ahead and like what you like, Lindsay, and that's okay. All right. So rankings.
Yes. So we have a song, guys. Clara asked for it. So here we go. Let's be frank. It's time to rank. This one's good, but that one stank. Ranking Rick Riordan. Yeah.
Woo!
You got your song.
I'm so thrilled. It's going to be my ringtone.
Oh, no. Would you believe that Dan comes from a very musically gifted family? I believe it.
I'm amazing, guys. All right. Best hero. So for all these ones, I have now chopped them down to just what their top 10 is from what we had before. And then we're going to add new stuff and all that stuff. So top 10, Clarice, Raina, Bob, Nico, Piper, Leo, Hazel, Frank, Annabeth, and Percy. I have considered moving everyone and adding Jason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Conspicuously absent from the top 10.
Yes. So I have my personal top 10. Do you want me to say it or not say it?
No.
Okay.
Don't say it. Let's just
All right. So let's
wiggle this out.
First of all, knock Clarice off and replace her with Jason just to start. And we can pick where he actually goes. But
yeah. I had a feeling we'd start there.
Yeah.
Bye, Clarice.
Now, I think we should make Bob number 10.
I agree.
Okay.
Now, what do we want to do with Nico?
So I would like to put him at 3.
Mm-hmm. Under Annabeth and Percy?
Under Annabeth and Percy, and then I would like to put Raina as 4, but I'm open to that being up for debate.
Okay.
I really like Frank and Hayes. I mean, like, I'm super open to that. Nico should absolutely be top 5, and I would put him at 3.
So I think we don't really have a choice but to move Hazel and Frank down to the bottom. It's just like, I feel as much as I really like both of their characters, and I
disagree with you.
Really?
I think Raina should be above Hazel between Hazel and Frank.
I would have put Raina above Frank even. But
really?
Yeah.
Frank has like a real arc over multiple books.
That's true. We have talked about Raina not necessarily having a full arc. It's just her final conclusion where she gets is like so heroic.
I think Raina's awesome. Yeah. But like, if I want to talk about like character writing and everything that Frank evolved into, I think Frank has to be above Raina.
That's true. What I was going to say is the fact that Rick himself deprioritized Hazel and Frank, like, is such a like speaks about the hero in my mind I'm like speaks about hero prioritization, but I understand that Frank, like, I love Frank's arc,
but that's the thing is, I feel like he finished Frank the same way he finished Percy and Annabeth, and we're not penalizing Percy and Annabeth for not being above
Percy and Annabeth were still great in this last book though.
Were they
great?
Percy just continues to
be Percy,
and we love him. So
Percy light.
And I guess you're right. I mean, I do like Annabeth and the Piper thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, like, there were good moments with both of them, like, really stellar.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, let's go back to the top 3, though. So, do you agree with her about Nico? Because personally, I have Leo at number 3.
I would put Leo at number 3 personally.
And then I have Nico at number 4. Yeah.
I can live with that.
He's in the top 5 per your request.
Yes.
I mean, Leo was willing to sacrifice himself to win. He's the hero of the book.
Yes, he really is.
You know, he's the one who defeated Gia with his brain.
Yeah.
So, like,
and he has an arc as well.
Yeah.
So, a very good one.
I'm happy with Nico at number 4.
Piper at 5.
That's exactly what I have. And then I have Frank, Raina, Hazel, Jason.
I like that.
I'm good with that. I will say, if we were doing this just based on Blood of Olympus, this would look so different to me.
I agree.
And that frustrates me so much because Jason, for example, would be so high up.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's all I'll say. Yep. I keep just
I just can't argue him being better than Hazel given Hazel's original book.
No, me neither. No, totally
me
not.
Yeah.
I'm just it's really frustrating.
Oh yeah, when I was saying moving like Frank and Hazel down, I didn't actually mean below Jason. Yeah. I just meant below Raina.
I'm just happy Jason got into the top 10 by the end.
Yeah,
true.
All right. So unless you guys want to change anything, this was the top 10 I wrote down.
Really? Yeah. I mean, this is actually pretty. Yeah, I'm happy with this.
All right. Good, Clara?
Do I like Nico more than Leo? Yes. Do I think that Leo's the better hero as of now? Yes.
You know, I could move Nico to number 3.
I personally, and I'm the one who struggled with Leo for a whole entire book, and I still think that this is a better, like, more accurate.
I think, again, it comes back to, like, I don't know, like, Nico did start all the way back in Titan's Curse.
Yeah, think of the little boy playing with his little figures.
Here's the thing that's complicated about all this is, like, I think there's an argument for Nico to be number 1, but I do think there's an argument for that. Like, I think he is the person who has the most obvious change throughout a long period of time. Like, Percy doesn't have nearly the same, like, he has moments and things that are interesting.
Right.
But, like, I don't know. I just think Nico is too background for too much of it to really be number 1.
It goes back to the if it were just Blood of Olympus, Nico would be super high up.
There was a reason that Nico was not in our like upper top 10 for a lot of the versions of this list. Like he was too background to other people's heroic action. Like the problem is this is the cream of the crop here, folks. And this is also a little bit about recency bias. Like, and that's why my brain was like, where does Raina go? Nico, like the thing is, if we're really, as you say, Clara, if we're really talking about this book and letting the recency bias, Percy would not be number 1.
Yeah. Honestly, if I was picking the best hero of Blood of Olympus, I would put Raina.
Same.
Yeah.
Me too. I would do Raina and then Nico and then Leo.
Yeah.
And then Jason.
Yeah.
And then
that's
Jason.
Completely different.
Yeah. I could put Nico at number 3.
Here's my argument for Nico at number 3.
Okay.
I do think, to the extent that growth plays into it as part of heroics, I think that Nico he really continues to grow as a human being.
But he also murders someone, so can he be best hero?
But
he eternity murders someone.
he eternity murders someone, but he immediately grapples with that.
Yeah.
Percy, if you think about it, like Percy kills a lot of like Titans and like whoever else, and it takes him to going to Tartarus and seeing them to really grapple with that.
Yeah, but I think if Percy like chopped off Ethan's head, he'd probably think about it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, like I agree. I think that Nico, though, he doesn't do things without thinking about them. Like, and that's part of why he's a really good hero, I would say, also, is like he's constantly examining his own behavior and holding himself up. Yeah. Like,
so does Leo.
That's true.
So does Leo.
Leo is someone who also, if we're talking about change, like his whole like internal journey, his maturity and his change from like the person that he like hated himself for being and tried to run away from to now running to something and running to, frankly, a life and death experience. And he runs to Calypso and he promises her something to return to her. He's never really returned to something except like, you know, the camp.
He really, I feel like he really does grow up.
And people notice the change in him. Whereas like, for example, Nico's change, everyone's like, wait, what? Nico's like different now. And it's like, yeah, that's nice because we were with him. But like the fact that Leo like is so, he becomes such a member of the group. He before was like an outcast. Leo deserves to be number 3.
Clara.
Leo can be 3. I'm okay with it. I just know that personally for me, Nico is 3, but it's okay.
I understand.
I'm all right with this.
Honestly, like even after this, I might be like, oh yeah, maybe we should have moved Nico to 3. Like the thing is, it's just
the
about
top, honestly, the top 5 could go in any order, and I'd probably be pretty okay with it.
I agree.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, so the final list-ish for now, because we're going to put it aside and come back when we mix it with Kane Chronicles at the end of Kane Chronicles.
No.
Best hero, Bob, Jason, Hazel, Raina, Frank, Piper, Nico, Leo, Annabeth, and Percy. All right. Best god, Cupid, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Artemis, Athena, Mars, Mr. D, Hermes, Hades, and Juno. And I have consider Nike, Apollo, and maybe moving something. I just put Nike. I don't think she's actually getting on this list.
Mm-mm.
I think maybe Apollo can push out Cupid.
I mean, he's an annoying brat.
Yeah, I liked Apollo when we had him on the list before, back in whatever book it was that we liked him.
Titan's Curse.
Titan's Curse, yeah.
Okay, so you don't want Apollo.
No.
Not right now. He's gotta earn it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
per Zeus's orders,
Yeah.
he's got to earn
yes, he has some trials ahead of him.
it.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we're just keeping the list as it is. I'm going to argue for Hades over Juno.
Me too.
Really?
Yep.
Why?
Where did this come from?
I want to know Clara's explanation.
In this series, in specific books, I feel really strongly,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some like continuities. And in
Yeah.
the same way that for me, Percy and Annabeth are fantastic in literally every book,
Yeah.
I think Hades, whenever we see him, is really interesting.
And we see him a lot.
And we see him
That's
a
true.
lot, and he contributes and like
Yep.
does interesting, like, I don't know. Whereas Juno, I really liked her in book 1.
Yeah. And then she just goes kind of away. I mean, she's a little
Yeah.
bit good in Son of Neptune at the beginning, but like,
Barely in it.
yeah, it was her deal in Lost Hero. And
Yeah.
then it's just like, oh, yeah, I guess it worked out, sort of.
Yeah.
But whatever, Hera.
And here, it's a sort of like tragic thing where
Yeah.
Zeus is his normal dickish self.
Yeah.
So like, but that doesn't, I mean, Hades
Yeah.
is just an MVP.
And he has 2 children here. He's the only one with 2 children. I guess Zeus
Well, Zeus, but
Yeah.
Thalia is like
Yeah.
not
around.
she's not a POV person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like Hades / Pluto.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with this. I
Yeah.
just am very in shock by both of you.
I really liked Hades in this book and the
Yeah.
last one.
I love Hades when he makes fun of Nico, and that's when he's like, I'm sure there were both reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think
Awkward
they,
dad Hades is like one of the best things.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And I enjoy him as Pluto too. I like his
Yeah.
his moments with Hazel.
All right, I'm happy
All
with
right.
this. So I don't think we need to reread
Yeah.
it. Just know.
All we did was switch Hades and Juno.
Yeah, 1 and
Yep.
2.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Best baddie: Polyphemus, Phineas, Kronos, Tartarus, Ethan, Keone, King Minos, Arachne, Gia, and Luke. Consider Octavian and Orion. And also maybe moving Gia down.
Agreed.
I think
Yeah.
Ethan should go off the list.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah.
Off
Yeah.
the list?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Me too.
Both of you think this?
I just I'm looking at this list and I'm comparing, in my mind, I'm like comparing Octavian to Ethan.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Octavian had that like selfishness, that like the ego, the like, I'm the one
Yeah.
who deserves this. And Ethan was like an antagonist, but he was such a person that like
Yeah.
the things he did are
But
just
that's
like,
part of what makes him a good baddie.
I know it's what makes
You think Polyphemus is better than Ethan?
No, I guess I see
guess
Dan's
it-
point.
yeah.
I'm good. I just always, it's like with the hero one
Yeah.
where I sometimes forget that it's like an inclusive look at heroics.
Yeah.
That this, I'm sort of like, yeah, but Ethan wasn't as bad as anyone.
Yeah, but neither was
Exactly.
Luke, and Luke's number 1.
Yeah, but that's,
Yeah.
but
Luke
that,
did
but
a
that
lot
was
of
great.
messed up stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
A
mean,
lot more messed up stuff in my mind than like Ethan.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
you're right about that. But to me, so we have to add, I assume we're adding both Octavian and Orion. So to me,
Yeah.
I just knock off Phineas and Polyphemus and move Ethan down.
I want Phineas to still be on this list.
All right.
I mean, Ethan is far more important. He actually has
Yeah.
a multi-book arc as
Yeah.
being a bad guy. So like,
Yeah, I would take
Okay.
Polyphemus and Phineas off.
all right,
Okay,
that's
let's
fair.
knock them off. And I would put Octavian at number 2 under Luke.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Okay. I expected that from Olga. I did not expect that from you.
I'm actually highly considering that as well.
Really?
Dan. Yeah.
I would put Orion there.
Yeah, that was the problem.
I had Orion at number 3.
I think Orion
at 2 and Octavian at 3.
I agree.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
I agree.
I mean, I'll just say I feel like Octavian, I really appreciated that they never went too far with him. It would have been so easy to make him being possessed the whole time, make him just like want to kill people for the sake of killing people, like whatever. Like,
Well, it helped to invent Bryce. Like, Bryce was really helpful for that.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he like brought in all of those like other like creatures and things like that, and former enemies. Like, what an idiot!
Yeah.
Like,
but I think he has one of the best endings of anyone villain wise, especially because he saves Rome and everything.
Yeah, like you got your wish, you messed up.
But Orion is freaking awesome too. So
yeah,
and Orion actually scares me.
Yeah.
Orion was terrifying.
That's
Orion scares me in a way that Luke doesn't.
Yeah. The fact that it was such that friggin' chapter when he first shows up and kills so many people is horrifying.
Yeah.
They do such a good job of that. You're right.
He's really threatening.
Now, I moved Gia to number 10.
I am completely okay with that, but also find it hilarious.
I think Gia should go below Tartarus, but Kronos should go above Tartarus, actually.
I had number 10 Gia, number 9 Kronos, number 8 Tartarus.
I just kind of think it makes sense to sort of pair Gia and Tartarus at the bottom, and like Kronos. I mean, I understand like he was so tied in with Luke, and he had his own questionable like decision making and whatever. But like he was at least more of a scheming like antagonist and bad guy towards them.
All right, I give you that.
Yeah, I'm good with this list.
I'm pretty dang good with this list now. Yeah. All right, so the final baddie list: Gia, Tartarus, Kronos, Ethan, Keone, King Minos, Arachne, Octavian, Orion, and Luke. I think it's funny you guys wanted to get rid of Ethan, and there are 3 people underneath him.
I mean, you reminded me of what this list is supposed to be. It really is about being a baddie. He was a baddie, even though like I can justify his actions, but like same deal, sort of. I mean, less so with Luke, given the extremes that he goes. But Ethan just like his thought process makes sense to me as a son of Nemesis too, and like given what Percy does for all demigods and all gods, like you know.
I do agree with you though. They don't really show Ethan. Like, it's just the fact that he's on the bad side. He doesn't really do that much that's bad, you know? Like, well, he stabs Annabeth.
Yeah, I was going to say, he stabs Annabeth, and I think he contributes to Beckendorf's death on the Princess Andromeda.
For me, Ethan and Luke are in a really tenuous position here because they both do things that are really bad, and they also have a sort of redemption-y narrative.
Yeah.
Luke especially.
Yeah.
And so if we weren't thinking of this in a well-rounded sort of a way, I would say I would put
Orion as number 1.
I would put Orion as 1 because honestly, that has like scary stakes for me as someone who's almost 30 years old.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly the most scary and villainous and evil.
While also not being like a 2-dimensional cardboard cutout villain.
Well, that's the thing that's so funny is that he's like, this is the biggest departure from the mythology too. I mean, given all of this is a huge departure, but like that this background to him that makes him such a villain isn't like grounded in the same way that like Arachne arguably is, or like, you know.
All right. Well, I think that's good. We can always come back and change our minds. Again, we will be combining this with Kane Chronicles at some point. And what's it called? All the other ones. All
Magnus
the other books. Magnus Chase. Yeah.
I hate that this is the assignment that we set out for ourselves.
I know.
I hate
I mean, we're going to have each series list, and then we're going to have the combined lists. We're not like I'll keep this list.
We're not monsters.
This is going to be so hard. Oh my God.
Best real world locale: Dalmatia, Atlanta, St. Louis Arch, Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, Wolf House Ruins, Smithsonian, Rome, New York City, Alaska. Consider Pompeii, Athens, and San Juan, Puerto Rico.
I want San Juan on this list.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really feel like the others.
I didn't mind Pompeii. Like, Pompeii being number 10, I wouldn't have an issue with, honestly.
Yeah.
But it also, I don't know, all of these like ancient places other than Rome, I don't know why I refer to them that way. I'm sorry. They're also modern places, but
I know what you mean, though.
the ancient classical world places, they just didn't feel as like visceral except for Rome.
I did enjoy the one reason why I kind of want Pompeii at number 10 is the moment of her looking at the merchandise.
Yeah.
And her and Raina being like, this is something. Like,
this is messed up.
Yeah, because I could that's something that I feel like I would feel if I was there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I get more out of that than Atlanta's aquarium.
Can we push off Dalmatia and Atlanta and put Pompeii and San Juan?
I'm happy
That's
with
what
that.
I was thinking, yeah.
San Juan probably better.
Should go
better
higher
than the St. Louis Arch.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I'd be okay with it going above the St. Louis Arch.
Me too.
All right, so the new list is Pompeii, St. Louis Arch, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, Wolf House Ruins, Smithsonian, Rome, New York City, and Alaska. Alrighty, now it's the big kahuna book ranking. Right now we have Sea of Monsters, Lightning Thief, Titan's Curse, Battle of the Labyrinth, Son of Neptune, The Lost Hero, The Last Olympian, The Mark of Athena, and The House of Hades. Where do we want to put the Blood of Olympus?
Can we split it? Can we do Blood of Olympus Part 1, Blood of Olympus Part 2, and Blood of Olympus Part 3?
I mean, Blood of Olympus Part 3, the very last few
I
40 pages goes below Sea of Monsters.
No.
Yeah. I think that this should go...
Here's the thing. I could go so many different places with this. I'll say, if I wanted to be really mean, I could put it right after Lightning Thief.
Like at number 9?
No, at number 7.
Okay.
So Lightning Thief being lower than that.
I was like, wait, we don't have... we do have 10 books finally, so that actually makes sense.
No.
I'm really...
I know.
Yeah. I'm really struggling here.
I also want to talk about whether we should be swapping Lost Hero and Son of Neptune.
Yeah, that is one of my questions as well.
Let's definitely do that.
Yeah.
Let's definitely do that.
Okay, I'm on board.
I'm glad we're all on the same page.
And then Blood of Olympus after Lost Hero.
I agree with that statement, but I don't know if Clara does.
I mean, I'd rather reread Battle of the Labyrinth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining rereading this. This is so frustrating.
I would reread parts of this over the entirety of Battle of the Labyrinth.
True.
And that's the problem.
Exactly.
The highs in this book are higher than many others.
But I also have just a lot more expectations for this book to be better than it is.
I agree, because I think The Last Olympian would actually be number 2 in my rankings, but The House of Hades would be number 3. But I'm not gonna, we don't need to do that.
You mean Mark of Athena would be number 3 for you?
No. Wait. No. I would put Mark of Athena as number 1.
Wait, since when?
And I don't know.
When did this happen? You liked House of Hades more than Mark of Athena.
Again, I'm thinking of the highs here, man. I'm thinking of the highs.
You hated Leo.
Oh, I forgot that was in that book.
Yeah.
All right, never mind. Then yeah.
Each character, there's some reason to love particular books just for the my problem with putting Blood of Olympus that low is so hugely partly because of Orion and Raina and Nico.
Yep.
And their stuff is just so much better than what happens in
Battle of the Labyrinth.
For example.
Yeah.
It's so much more intense.
Yeah.
I love Battle of the Labyrinth. It was, I think, definitely my favorite book of the original series, and I loved it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Blood of Olympus has things that reach me at this age now.
Yeah.
I feel like that counts for something.
I would be okay with putting Blood of Olympus between Lost Hero and Son of Neptune, but I
really like Lost Hero. I like Lost Hero more. I would put it between Battle of the Labyrinth and Lost Hero.
Do you want to put this at number 4, Clara?
Yeah, where does Clara want this?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for me personally, would put it at 4.
Okay. I think there's an argument for that between Son of Neptune and Last Olympian.
There's an argument for it. There definitely
There's an argument for it. I think there's a difference between potential versus like highly executed. Here's the thing that I'll say about The Lost Hero, for example. Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, yeah, we like Piper.
And Leo. Piper and Leo are amazing.
We love Piper and Leo in The Lost Hero, but we see, I mean, like...
And Juno.
And Juno. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I know, we did. Like, that's why we put her number 1.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm just like, I guess this is a Juno book, too. Yeah. There's an argument for this at number 4. I'd be honestly like...
Oh, God, no, guys, no.
I don't... Think about Jason. Because, like, Jason was, like... purportedly the main character of The Lost Hero.
But he wasn't, though.
Jason in this book recontextualizes him in all the other books, and that says something about...
That says something.
Yeah, but to me, like, Jason being kind of blah in Lost Hero isn't really that much of a problem because his function in the story is to be the mystery.
Yeah, but it's not that he's so blah in the other books. It's that this book manages to redeem him, make Reyna incredible, Nico even better. Still good things with Percy and Annabeth. Think about the twins, the
what twins?
What? Otis and Ephialtes?
No, the chain gods.
Oh, okay. They're not the chained gods.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that last third where it's bad, though.
I agree, but it's not like we didn't have criticisms about Lost Hero and Son of Neptune as well. And that's where I'm kind of like, if we're talking about payoff and things like that, like it...
But I guess I personally prefer the character work of Piper and Leo in Lost Hero.
I agree.
And that's 2/3 of the book. I don't think there's 2/3 of Blood of Olympus that are good.
I think it's 2/3.
I feel like I had a lot more complaints last week, which is part of why I'm arguing this. But I'm like, what were all my complaints last week?
I just re-listened to our podcast, and I don't.
Let's put it between Lost Hero and Son of Neptune.
That's
fine.
I think this has to be our compromise.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So our final ranking for these 10 are Sea of Monsters, Lightning Thief, Titan's Curse, Battle of the Labyrinth, Lost Hero, The Blood of Olympus, The Son of Neptune, The Last Olympian, The Mark of Athena, and The House of Hades. This is very interesting. This is not the list I necessarily would have expected when we started this. But
I'm staring at this and I'm like, why is any of this in the order that it is?
Yeah, me too.
But at the same time, I understand why it's in the order
I'm
that
also
it is.
Like Titan's Curse is one of my favorite books, and it's at number 7, right? But I guess I understand. Also, we didn't really talk more about whether Last Olympian should get moved up.
I mean, I really don't know. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm saying, is I'm looking at this as like, this is completely wrong, but also this is the closest we can ever get.
I'm very happy with House of Hades being number 1. I'll say that. Like, I think that is the correct answer.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair too.
I wouldn't begrudge Last Olympian being number 2.
I just love Annabeth so much that the Mark of Athena needs to be at number 2 for me.
And here's the thing:
is really good.
Percy and Annabeth are better in Mark of Athena than they are Last Olympian.
But I really love Last Olympian.
It is
like I could right
now,
now as we end this, go and read Last Olympian and be happy about it.
And I'm glad that I came around on Son of Neptune. Son of Neptune was good.
It was really good.
Olga poisoned my brain with her hatred of the Romans.
I mean, I still hate the Romans, but I really love this book. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I love the character work. I really love Hazel in it.
Yep.
It's just one of those things where it's like, my God, the Romans, cheer the hell up. If we could go back and send antidepressants into the past, I mean, like, get rid of some of the lead in the water in the aqueducts, give them some antidepressants, and I think we'd be living in a different world.
I wish, can we, remaster The Lost Hero? I want to take, some of the core things of that, make Jason better, change some of the villains they fight, and
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it gets to be number 4.
Yeah.
Like, if Jason had more of Percy's things coming back to himness, then it could be a very different story.
I think that when they go to the cave and he talks to Thalia, he should have completely gotten his memory back.
Yeah.
And the only reason they didn't do that is they wanted to end on him being like, Percy's in the other camp, blah, blah, blah. But yeah. Anyway, I also want to throw out also that I do think Lost Hero might have the best action of Heroes of Olympus. Maybe. No, honestly, I think Lost Hero has the best action of Heroes of Olympus. I think the action went downhill from then
I think you might be right.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, it definitely went downhill by the end of Blood of Olympus.
House of Hades has good fighting in Tartarus. But
and actually, I would say at the end, there was some good stuff, like with Frank.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. House of Hades is pretty good, too.
House of Hades is number one for a reason.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. We are probably going to be doing some videos and stuff in the next few weeks. Maybe we'll take a week off of the audio podcast. Maybe I'll put audio onto the podcast feed. I'm not sure. But stay tuned for that. We might do a best moments thing. We might do another casting video. Check out youtube.com/DoingOK. And thank you guys so much for listening. And may the gods be ever in your favor.